Hi, Steve Garino here. As a financial advisor, I receive a lot of questions relating to long-term care. In the first section of this video, I'm going to provide you an overview so you have a better understanding of the following. What exactly is long-term care? How likely is it for a person to need long-term care during their lifetime? And where people typically receive care. Let's first start with what is long-term care. Long-term care is a range of services and supports you may need to meet your personal care needs. Most long-term care is not medical care, but rather assistance with the basic personal tasks of daily living. Sometimes these are called activities of daily living, or ADLs. They're as follows: eating, dressing, bathing, toileting, transferring, maintaining continence, and cognitive impairment as well. So how likely is it someone will need long-term care? With people living longer and longer, the likelihood of needing long-term care has also increased. And now, more than ever, many of us have firsthand experience with a loved one needing this type of care. Oftentimes, it's affected someone in our family or someone that has been close to us. So here's the facts. 70% of people 65 or older will require some form of long-term care during their lifetime. It's actually a pretty staggering number. 7 out of 10 people that are 65 or older will need this type of care. Of those that are receiving care, 51% report that it causes undue stress on the family. So of the people receiving care, and of the people that are receiving care by a family member, 51% of them state that it causes stress, disharmony in the family relationship. And it's really pretty easy to imagine, because though someone may want to care for their loved one, it's a lot of stress. It's a lot to do to take care of someone that needs this type of care on an ongoing basis. And of the people that require this type of care, the average length of stay in a nursing home is 3 years. Longer for women typically, and shorter for men, but the average is 3 years. So let's move on. Where do most people receive the care that they get? Well, nursing home is one, and the nursing home provides the most extensive level of care, along with 24-hour supervision. Assisted living also covers or provides this type of care, and generally provides a home-like setting and promotes the resident's independence. Typically, it does not provide as much support as the nursing home does. And in-home care. Many people, of course, prefer to stay in the comfort of their own home. I would imagine most people do, in fact, if they don't need to leave their home and go into a nursing home where there's not going to be the things that they're usually accustomed to. It's challenging. So many people prefer to be around their loved ones in a comfortable, safe environment. So those are the 3 places that most people will receive care when they need it. Let's move on to part 2. And in part 2, we're going to discuss how much it costs for long-term care and who typically pays for it. So how much does it cost? The national average for care inside a nursing home is $9,000 a month. It's a pretty staggering number, to be honest with you, $9,000 a month. And the national average for care inside the home, so someone who stays home, is about $4,500 a month. course, it's lower than the nursing home, but it's not 24-hour care typically. This is for, on average, about 40 hours per week. And still it comes to $4,500 per month. So if the need for care is greater, then of course the amount of cost is going to go up. And as I mentioned previously, the average stay in a nursing home is 3 years. So at about $100,000 a year for 3 years, you're looking at an average of about $300,000 in expenses for nursing home for long-term care. And of course, some people may need care longer than for 3 years. So it just increases the cost. I actually have an uncle that's receiving care in his home, and he's been receiving this care for over 5 years now. Thankfully, he's still doing okay. He just needs help with his activities of daily living, like we discussed. So let's discuss who pays for it, because that's a lot of money. Who pays the bill? So there are a lot of misconceptions actually relating to this. Many people believe that Medicare pays for long-term care or traditional health insurance policy. They think that will cover their long-term care. Unfortunately, Medicare and traditional health insurance often cover very little or none of the cost. Here's the reason. As I mentioned, long-term care has to do with performing activities of daily living, not medical needs or medical care. Just as a refresher, those activities of daily living are eating, dressing, bathing, toileting, transferring from a bed to a chair, for instance, maintaining continence, and also severe cognitive impairment. Here are the Medicare rules. Medicare will pay for up to 100 days in a nursing home, but only if certain conditions are met. And those conditions are: 1, you have to have had a prior hospital stay of at least 3 days, and you have to be admitted into a Medicare certified nursing home within 30 days of the prior hospitalization. So you have to have been hospitalized for at least 3 days, and then within 30 days go into a Medicare certified nursing facility. So not all of them are Medicare certified, but it has to be Medicare certified for it to qualify. And finally, you have to need skilled care, such as skilled nursing services, physical therapy, or other types of therapy. Once again, Medicare does not cover long-term care, or what is also known as custodial care. If you do meet these conditions, then Medicare pays 100% of your cost, but for only the first 20 days of your stay. For the remaining 80 days, you're responsible for paying the first $140 per day. So that comes to, per month, that $140 per month is $4,200 a month that you would be paying out of your pocket. Anything over the $140 per day for the first 80 days, then Medicare pays for that. Medicaid, on the other hand, people think that Medicaid will pay. And it's true, Medicaid does eventually pay. But the truth is, Medicaid doesn't pay if you have much in the way of assets. You have to virtually spend down all of your assets in order to qualify for Medicaid to pay. And then only then, once most of your assets are gone, Medicaid steps in. So in reality, what happens is typically the individual pays for their own care out of their own pocket, out of money they've been saving perhaps their lifetime for. They spend all of that, and then only after that happens does Medicaid pay. And to me, it's extremely sad, because I've experienced where families have had to use up all of their assets, or virtually all of their assets that they've accumulated during their lifetime, had to give them to the nursing home to pay for their care, and then finally receive care from Medicaid. However, there is one more option for paying for long-term care insurance, and that's by transferring the risk to an insurance company. And I'm going to get into those options now. So as I mentioned, instead of counting on care from your family, Medicare, or spending all your money to qualify for Medicaid, the option of private insurance, private long-term care insurance, is viable. And there's 3 different types of policies that I'd like to talk with you about. The first one is traditional long-term care insurance. With traditional long-term care insurance, you actually select a monthly benefit amount. It can range anywhere from $3,000 to $12,000 a month. As I mentioned, the average cost of care is around $9,000 a month, so that may give you a guideline. Then you select the length of time the policy will pay. And it's common, it can be anywhere from 2 years, 3 years, all the way for the rest of the person's life. Of course, the longer time you choose for the policy to pay, the more expensive the policy is going to be. Then you have an option typically of adding inflation protection. So that will help you to keep up with inflation, because like everything else, the cost of long-term care insurance continues to increase, probably at a higher rate than inflation does. But with this, you can pick a number between 3 and 5% typically, and it will increase by that level. Your benefit will increase by that level each and every month. And then finally, you have the ability to choose how often you pay the premium. You can pay for it monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. So all these options allow you to tailor a policy to what exactly you're looking for. And one other option is the waiting period for the policy to begin paying benefits. So you can have a policy that may start paying benefits after you need this care for 30 days, or you may have a policy that it takes 90 days to begin paying benefits. So in other words, you would pay for the first 30 or 90 days, and then the insurance company would step in after that. These types of plans typically appeal to people who don't have a large sum of money that they want to deposit with the insurance company, but they want to pay as you go. So they want to pay, they have an income where they can pay a monthly or semi-annual or an annual, but they don't have enough money to qualify for the next type of plan I'm going to talk about, which is a hybrid life insurance policy and long-term care insurance policy. So actually this policy, this hybrid policy, combines both. It has a long-term care component as well as a life insurance component or a death benefit component. These types of policies are usually funded with a one-time payment. So it could be a one-time payment of, say, $50,000, $100,000, or could be even more, depending on how much coverage you're trying to achieve. The benefits are based on the amount of money that you put in. So based on that $50,000, $100,000, or whatever. There are some other factors, though, that come into determining how much long-term care coverage and how much life insurance coverage you'll receive. And those are the age of the person, the sex of the person, their current health condition, and as I mentioned, the amount deposited. These policies can also have an elimination period or a waiting period. Can be from immediate, so once you start needing care, it starts paying immediately. Or it could be 90 days, again, where you pay out of your own pocket the first 90 days, and then the insurance company or the insurance policy starts to pay. Nice thing about these policies is you can also often get a lot of leverage on the amount of money you put in. So for instance, if you deposited, let's say $100,000 into the policy, you may receive or have a death benefit of between $200,000 and $300,000. So if something happened to you the very next day, your heirs would get, again, for that $100,000 deposit, could be $200,000, could be $300,000. Again, it depends on the factors I said earlier. But as another option, that $100,000 can be leveraged for long-term care coverage, perhaps up to $300,000 or $400,000. So for that $100,000, you may have $300,000 of long-term care coverage that the insurance company is going to be responsible for if you need the care. So that's pretty significant, that leverage. You take $100,000 and you convert it basically into a $300,000 pool of money that's available to be used for care. So I tend to like the policies, this type of policy, for that reason. You're getting a lot of leverage for your money. Some of the other things that people like about these policies is you can eventually take your premium back. So after several years, if you decide you haven't used it, first of all, and you decide you don't need the policy any longer or don't want the policy any longer, you can get all or most of your money back just by canceling the policy. And unlike the annual pay plans, those you don't get the money back. Once you've spent the money, it's gone. It went towards, like auto insurance, where you paid for the coverage while you had it, but now if you didn't need it, you lose that money. Again, that's the annual pay plan that I talked about previously. So with this type of plan, you can eventually get your money back if you want to, or you can access the cash value. So you're going to have a cash value based on the amount of money you put in there. You can borrow against that or withdraw from that. Of course, it'll reduce your benefits, but you still have the option to do so. Or ultimately, if you don't use it for long-term care, and if you don't borrow money or take money out of the policy, it still has the death benefit protection. So your heirs or your loved ones or charity or whomever it is that you want to benefit, they'll end up receiving the money. So these types of plans, these hybrid plans, typically are for someone who's looking to have a policy that they can afford to deposit a more significant amount of money into, that is also going to do two things: provide life insurance protection as well as long-term care protection. And the final one is a life insurance policy with a long-term care insurance rider. And the nice thing about this type of policy is it will pay for long-term care coverage, or also, as we mentioned with the hybrid, it'll pay a death benefit if the long-term care insurance is not needed. These policies give a lot of leverage as well. So you may deposit, for instance, that same, we'll say $100,000. You would actually get a larger life insurance or a death benefit with this type of policy than you would with the hybrid policy under most circumstances. So let's say you deposit $100,000 into this type of policy, you may get a death benefit of, say, $300,000. And you can withdraw typically for care, for long-term care needs, up to 2% of that death benefit. So if you have a $300,000 death benefit, you can take out up to $6,000 a month to provide for your care. If you fund it with more money and you have, let's say, a $500,000 death benefit, well, then you can take out up to $10,000 a month. Just a matter of how much coverage you'd like to have. The nice thing is if the long-term care insurance is never needed, and let's hope it's not, the policy is going to pay out $300,000 or $500,000. So you took a $100,000 asset and you converted it into a $300,000 or $500,000 death benefit. It's a lot of leverage. Another nice thing about this type of policy is it will pay no matter who is providing you the care. So if you have a family member or relative providing the care, you can pay them for providing the care, so the money, in essence, stays in the family. There's no need to submit receipts for reimbursement or anything along that line. And if you don't need, let's say for instance you have a $6,000 a month benefit and you don't need all of that benefit in 1 month or whatever, that money can stay in the pool and be available for future use. And that death benefit that I talked about, that $300,000 or $500,000 or whatever the number would be based on your situation, can be paid out even while you're living for terminal or critical illness. So if you were diagnosed, for instance, with cancer or some other terminal illness, you can start drawing on that, again, example, $300,000 or $500,000. So again, the nice thing about this type of policy, it's going to pay a benefit in some way, either through a long-term care benefit or cash value if you want to withdraw the money, or in death benefit at some point. And that death benefit should avoid, if it's set up properly, should avoid probate, should avoid income tax, and should avoid estate taxes. So who do these policies or these types of plans appeal to? These are appropriate for people that would like to leave additional funds, leverage their money, and leave it to their family, leave a legacy to their family, or maybe some charity. And they're also looking for the added peace of mind of knowing that they have their long-term care insurance protection in place if it's ever needed. So in conclusion, I hope you've enjoyed this overview of long-term care insurance. I know that a lot of people have questions, so I hope I've answered a lot of those questions. Of course, a lot of this is based on a person's individual circumstances. So I know I've touched on a lot in this series, but the bottom line is that the need for long-term care insurance is very real and more real now than ever. I really believe it's important to address it and plan for it so you can have peace of mind relating to it. And if you'd like to learn more about long-term care or about your specific situation, feel free to send me an email and I'll be glad to respond to you and get back and answer any questions or help you in any way that I can. I'd like to thank you for listening, and I really wish you a wonderful day.